very often you hear WHO, GMP. And you can see a lot of those are very much similar wording, right? For data integrity and compliance. And when it comes to data integrity, you will always hear those words as well. And these are all extracted from their regulation, their documents. You can see the word Alcoa Plus. This one is probably by far the most common when we talk about data integrity. And many years ago, when this became important was 21 CFR Part 11. I think when it happened, when it came out, some of you may not even be born. It was first introduced in 1997, right? And some of you, I think you are millennials, right? 2000 after. So it is actually before your time. And what happened is you can see it actually show that it's the same thing have mentioned very often. Alcoa stands for attributable, legible, contemporaneous, original, and accurate, right? And it's actually a very good thing because when the regulation first came out, it was very different people interpret differently. But with Alcoa Plus, basically the understanding is very much aligned, and it's easy also for a lot of the companies to follow as well. And to take it a deeper, what actually is Alcoa Plus, right? And this is actually an acronym of different words. Attributable means whatever you do, you must document. Remember the 5 W: who, when, what, where, why, right? Who did it, when you did it, what actually you do, what exactly you have done, and in some cases, you also need to document why you do it, right? Most of the time in today's system, especially today's data system, all these are being done automatically. You do not need to manually type. Doesn't happen anymore. Those are what we call audit trail. And legible, things must be quote unquote human readable, right? And it's in the permanent media which you retrieve as and when you did it as well. Contemporaneous, it must be current. Sometimes in the past, people will do is, I do an experiment, I use my hand to write down the data or the results. Only later I put the information back in. And it's not acceptable because the moment it's being created, it has to be documented. That's why timestamp in manufacturing is so important. And it has to be synchronized as well, right? Original, the data has to be original. Now, what does that mean to be original? In the past, when we ask that question, they will say, okay, if I'm working in a manufacturing environment, the report is printed, someone signed the report, chopped the report, and that's my original. Not anymore. Today, if you talk about the FDA, the US, Europe, and so on, that's not your original. That's the copy of your original, right? So, is it acceptable as original? Short answer is no. However, of course, different countries have different stages of migrating from paper-based document to electronic. I believe some countries consider still original, but as time goes, that's no longer the case. Why people don't want it or auditor don't want it? Because it's very easy to forge. I can just write the date differently. Who can check? Very difficult, right? So this is also a very important thing. It has to be accurate. Now, accurate can mean many things. In order to have accurate results, you think about it, actually many steps are required. I must have instrument that actually get the results correctly. I must have the method that actually analyze correctly. when I actually do the run, I will have to check whether on that day the system is working well, and eventually I'll get my results correct. So if you think about it, it takes many steps. And under all these, you also need to make sure your data is being captured correctly as well, right? So far, so good. And also completely, so you can see there's Alcoa. And why I just now mentioned Alcoa Plus, or now even called Plus Plus, means along the way, more requirements are being added. So for this session, if you leave here, forget everything I talked about, just remember this acronym. I think it's already very good, right? And yes, be complete, because nowadays when auditors come to actually check whether your data, your results are really trustworthy or not, they will actually go in front of your computer and ask you to retrieve the data immediately. You cannot wait 1 hour, 2 hours and come back. Doesn't work. Immediate. And also to process the data again, and the results have been the same in your original batch. So it cannot be any different. If it's different, most likely you're in trouble. Now, I jump a little bit. When you fail audit in US, what happened? Let's say company here export some product to US or Europe, for example. If I fail the audit, what happened? It could be that you cannot export anymore. So for the company, it could be a lot of losses, right? And in some cases, maybe the company has to close because they cannot make money. So those are the things you need to think about as well. They also have to be consistent, especially in different sites. All this information has to be synchronized and harmonized as well. So just as simple as timestamp. If I'm in US, there's a certain way with the day and time. I come to here, will be different, but in many companies, like let's say Agent, for example, we all actually follow the US format. And during, that means all this information has to be stored and be able to retrieve even over long period of time. So those are the things need to be aware as well. And of course, available, that means the information need to be available as and when need to retrieve by the maybe the inspector, the auditor, or even the company's customers as well. And last but not least, has to be traceable. So anything you have done has to trace to original, so that you can actually validate or evaluate. And that's where the plus comes from, right? So far, so good. Okay, good. And in order for this to happen, if you have to step back a little bit, it's not just about having a data system or some process, but really have to start at the top. What we see very often, if the company senior management do not care about data integrity, it will go down, and then the people working in the lab also do not care. And of course, that could be very bad consequences. I'll show you some examples later. So at the top level, the company must be very serious about compliance. And you can see when you work in a company, the differences. The management leadership will always highlight the importance. Very often you go to company, you can see a lot of posters. They always try to remember their staff to make sure they follow the guidance. The policy, procedure, quality culture, and very important is the training as well. Because without proper training, they may not understand what is required to meet all the requirements. So always start with people. Then the component of the IT component, which is your data system, whether the data system is secure, is not easily being tampered, right? And also, if it's in a network environment, make sure it's being properly qualified. Remember the word I used just now, fit for intended use. You hear it all the time when you look at regulation. So whatever you set up, you need to demonstrate whether it's your instrument, whether your procedure has to be based on what you need to do for your work. And backup plan, especially in today's world, if your data is not secure, you don't have a copy, when disasters come, you may lose all the data. As I mentioned earlier, what happens if you lose all the data? There's no record. So as far as regulation, maybe end of the day, regulatory agency is concerned, you have never done the work. No record means you never done it. And therefore, either you redo or you may not even be able to ship your product. Okay. And then all the quality of your instrument is very important. You make sure your instrument demonstrated have proper process so that the instrument perform what is expected. That will include your standard, your reagent, your calibration, your qualification, and your maintenance of the instrument as well. And all these are critical pieces. And nowadays, because we're moving towards computerized system, and you hear a lot about computer system validation. That's in fact, GMP nowadays, we get a lot of questions even here in the country. So, and we have to go through a lot of process or policy to make sure the system is actually meet those requirements. Okay. And the one that very often we like to highlight is, remember just now, how do you generate accurate results? You must have proper instrument. So how you get proper instrument is to demonstrate your instrument actually does the job what it's supposed to. And that's where USP, United States Pharmacopoeia, Chapter 1058, highlighted this on analytical instrument qualification. So, and just a little bit background, it's the only chapter in the major pharmacopoeia talk about AIQ, analytical instrument qualification, implemented in 2008, and same year where GAM5 was available. GAM5 is almost really I would say one of the most significant guidance for computer system validation, data integrity, and so on. If you want to find out more, just Google GAM5. And what does GAM5 stand for? Good automated manufacturing practice, right? If you work in a company today, you will quite hear this very often. And it's updated in 2017. And regulations don't change so often, right? So, and usually only every few years it changes. And also the USP 1058 also updated according to GAM5. And of course, for Agilent, we do follow the latest version of USP 1058. And in order to actually meet the requirement of data integrity, ensure the instruments are properly qualified, this is what you actually have to do. And I mentioned a little bit earlier. First, you must have the instrument being qualified properly. That means the instrument is fit for intended use, followed by a validated method. Then, when you do your day-to-day work, you also need to check your system is suitable. And also, very often when you do a sequence, you also need to add some sample, or rather we call QC check, to make sure your analysis, the data is as expected. So there are different steps involved to generate the results, right? And with all this, you can see the foundation is giving your data, then followed by the different part. Let me just highlight this one. Most important is your data must be stored securely, traceable, and all the alcohol plus I just mentioned, followed by proper analytical instrument qualification, followed by proper method, development and validation, and finally, when you do the analysis properly, right? And to ensure that works, that's where the CSV comes in, computer system validation. And these are the different stages that actually you need to answer. So when the auditor comes, when the time comes, you work in a pharmaceutical QA/QC lab. Very common, those are the things being asked. What is the instrument used for? Do you know the instrument is suitable? Has the instrument been installed correctly? Does the instrument work in your lab? Does the instrument work with your method? And how will minimize the risk of breakdown? Right. So those are the questions. But what happens is, it's not like I just answer when the auditor come answer, ask me the question I answer. As I mentioned before, everything has to be properly documented. And actually, there are specific documents that you need to provide in order to answer those questions. For example, number one, in fact, on the user side, you have to develop what we call URS, user requirement specifications. In it, basically, say, if I want to use an instrument for a certain purpose, the instrument must have this step. Is it very critical? It's not so critical. And for us as a vendor, very often we have actually companies send us their URS and ask us how we are able to meet those requirements. Then we have to formally reply as well. And also design qualification, that is, what is the design of the instrument or system that meet my requirement. Design qualification tend to be more if your system is more customizable. If the system is not so customizable or needed to be, then that portion is actually very small. And I just also want to highlight those in gray. What is the user responsibility? Means that's the lab need to decide what you want to do. It's not something you will ask like us and say, okay, give me your URS. But my answer to very often is, but I do not know exactly what you need to do. How can I give you your URS, right? So those are what the user or the organization need to develop. What often happens is they may not be the expert in the area, so they will consult us, and we will tell them, okay, if you want to analyze this, you may need right? And IQ, what we call installation qualification, OQ, operation qualification, are what vendor do, like us, you do. And what IQ stands for is to ensure the installation is according to our standard. OQ means the functionality is also according to our standard. That also means if I do the IQ OQ in Vietnam versus I do IQ OQ in US or in Japan, exactly the same, no different. Because it's not dependent on your work. It's just for us to demonstrate the system is according to certain requirements. And next will be PQ, performance qualification. That one is not depending on us, but depending on you. Because company A may run some tests they are doing. Company B may run different tests. So the requirement could be very different. So that's what users do. Last but not least, how we minimize the risk of breakdown, that's PM, preventive maintenance. What preventive maintenance means is that you will make sure the instrument works before it breaks down. You don't wait until it breaks down to fix it. Usually it's too late. So, and very often, depending on the usage, once a year, some even for our instrument, even twice or 3 times a year, we have to actually do PM, we call that, before anything happens to the instrument. So continuously, the instrument works well. Every time insurance breaks down, you call your vendor to fix it. Means you cannot do your work for maybe 1 day, 2 days, 3 days or longer. If you're in the commercial environment, that could be very bad, right? And so I just want to highlight those in green are responsible by the laboratory. Like if you are in the manufacturing environment, that will be your responsibility. The one in blue will be a vendor's responsibility, whether it's natural or others. So what I just now mentioned about USB MPPA is actually tied back to, you notice in the regulated world, every time there's a question, usually there's some documentation you need to answer. So URS will answer who define laboratory capabilities, design qualifications so that what instruments are suitable, and PQ is to verify that under your condition, it works as intended. Okay. So far, so good. Okay. And comes to how to manage all the data. Now is if you're in the commercial world, you especially now we see more European company invest in Vietnam. The first thing when we talk to a lot of companies is, oh, we want to work towards meeting EU GMP, European Union GMP. And one big part of this is actually data integrity, right? So, and in order to manage all documents, it's actually not very easy. And you'll see the amount of document generated if it's put into paper form, it's going to be like whole stack of paper. But of course, everything now is electronic. And also there's a reason for it. If it's everything in paper, it's very hard to track and very easy to make mistakes. And when auditor come, they might question you, can I trust your data? Can I trust that you didn't change anything? So that is not a good thing. And even Excel, PDF can also be changed easily. In the pharmaceutical world, manufacturing, especially US Europe, Excel is not considered a tool. Anybody know why? Remember, security is important, right? Traceability audit trail is important. There is no audit trail for Excel. Anyone change anything, there's no record. The software we use in the pharmaceutical world, every change you make is being tracked. To log in to make the change, what exactly change, all these are being tracked. Excel is not developed for pharmaceutical space, so they don't have all these. And PDF is saying that you can change it and see that as a PDF again, right? So the better way to do is actually using a fully electronic approach. Usually is embedded in the software that the vendor provides. In our case, for example, the qualification, all these are actually in an electronic way. So essentially, when you run it, you want exactly the same way. It doesn't matter which person does it. So it's consistent. And very important is satisfy the data integrity requirement, right? Okay, good. And if you go out, you start hearing this word very often, CSV, computer system validation. And you see a little bit on the side just now, which basically in order to generate reliable results, you must demonstrate your system is self-reliable, right? And pretty much all these agencies I mentioned, whether it's US, Europe, Australia, WHO, they basically also ask this as well. And just to highlight what are the differences when we talk about validation versus qualification, it's also a very important concept to and I can tell you, even people in the industry for a long time can also mix up the two. Sorry, I keep pressing the wrong one. Okay, let me highlight. So qualifying treatment or intended use versus validating, right? So what's the difference when you say qualify versus validation? Okay, and especially for software, when it comes to the qualification, the way it works is we always test towards a predefined procedure, right? It's a standard way, and based on the document that the vendor provides. So when you come to qualification of the software, let's say Azure, we use the same protocol across the world. Meaning, if I want to qualify our OpenLab CDS software, whether I do it in Vietnam, I do it in other countries from Singapore or Europe, US, exactly the same. Because that's to demonstrate the software functionality, whether it works as expected. However, for validation, is for your use. Means you might use it. You might use it different from you, maybe from the people at the back. So different companies will use it differently. So you need to demonstrate this again for your own purpose, right? And usually that will based on the Gen5 model, and I'll show you the B model later on. And let me make sure. I always try to use the pointer. Configure software, and this one has to be according to your intended use, right? I'll give you an example. You might want to set your company policy. I need to change the password every 30 days. Another company, my policy is 60 days. So I can configure my system for this company maybe 30, the other maybe 60. And you might say, this my company, these people can only access this instrument, but other people cannot. And only this person can change your method or any processing, but others cannot. So all these are your requirements. And why we need all these requirements? I'm not going to go for that, but basically these are all the regulations that says that you do. Whether it's EU, US, WHO, I would say pretty much every agencies around. International agencies will ask the same thing, right? And it also follows the guidance of Alcoa Plus. As I mentioned earlier, if you forget anything I say this session, remember Alcoa Plus or Plus. And that is a very good guidance of what you require. And usually involve two parts. One part is ensure the system is configured according to your requirement, right? Like who can access, who cannot access, what is the role of each person or each job title, and of course audit trail has to be on. If it's off, then you will have a big problem. And also electronic signature. Nowadays, getting fewer and fewer people will sign by hand, right? Because it's not traceable. Electronic signature is traceable, and according to 21 CFR Part 11 US, is legally binding. Means if you electronic sign and something go wrong, you are legally responsible. Okay. And of course, the functional testing. Make sure all the various capabilities required, you demonstrate that you have tested and they are actually working as intended. Okay, so far so good. Okay, this is the V model. Okay, I will show you the whole thing, so give you time. Okay. This is Gen5. If you want to know more, search for Gen5. It's actually and it's about. I would say if you're interested in this area, it's probably not the most interesting document to read, but it's very important that you see what's inside. And you can see everything is very structured. So it starts with the risk assessment. And in our world, in pharmaceutical world, it's all about risk, high risk, low risk. And what are the things I need to, if it's high risk, means I need to pay more attention, right? So you have the validation plan, you have the requirement spec, functional spec, and then the operation design spec. each part correspondingly actually to a corresponding test document. So let's say your CSDS, you must have your user acceptance test. And then for your functional stack, you have your operational user acceptance test. Requirement, performance qualification, your validation test, you have a summary of traceability matrix to refer to individual documents, and a final validation report. And those are the things required, right? And they are not, they are not very simple documents. They are very lengthy because that's what when let's say you want to meet GMP, someone overseas come and audit you, they will look at all this, right? And of course, we know that we need to do CSV, but what are the challenges? These are the things that always mindful as well. You have to understand, yourself have to understand CSV. My experience is if I go to a different country, talk to 5 different people will give me 5 different answers. So even among people in the industry, they not always have the same interpretation. So referencing the guidance document like PM5 is very useful. And large number of documents will be generated. As you can see there, it's quite realistic. We do have a lot of documents. And also you need a good understanding of your work as well as the regulatory requirement and what's the acceptance in the industry. And one of the easiest, maybe one of the good way to understand what is acceptable and what is not acceptable is actually look at the warning letters. You learn a lot from reading the warning letters. For those interested, again, Google FDA warning letters. You see a lot. And from there, you understand what they don't want to see. I'll give you some examples later on. And it's a lot of resources and also require different people involved. It could be the lab, it could be the IT, it could be the QA, even senior management might be needed to be involved as well, right? And CSV typically require for new installation as well as major software upgrade, right? When there are big changes, that's what is required. And of course, what happens if you don't comply? I just want to highlight those in blue, like in this case. And US, you may wonder what is 483. 483 is when FDA come to audit you, they find things don't like, they will give you a list that you need to correct. It's called 483. And they will give you a certain amount of time, maybe 2 weeks, usually not very long. And then if you come back with the answers they are not happy, then it will give you a warning letter. Once you receive a warning letter, it will be on their website. So the whole world knows it's there. And it's not fun because the company reputation severely damaged. And very often, you may be restricted not to be able to export to the country. So you can imagine the problem. And in some cases, the management will get they may get fined, or maybe some cases maybe even jail term as well. So it's very, very serious. So the responsible registration shall be carried out, but they didn't even follow their own procedure. So you have a written procedure, but you don't follow. And they find out you don't, so you fail. This STR, they have they're supposed to do maintenance on January 20th, 2021, right? But the inspector cut on April 2022. They haven't done that, so they failed, right? And like repair, for example, after they repair, they didn't do qualification. There's no document they have to qualify after they done the major repair. So that against that, right? There's a lot of this is specific to computer systemization. Like the instrument equipped with audit trail. Remember I mentioned earlier audit trail. The software has audit trail, but they did not turn on the audit trail. So is that the software problem or the user problem? It's a user problem because the function is there, but not used, right? And again, some of the changes they made, they actually didn't actually properly document it. And like this is also a good example. They use a balance to weight, but there's no document. They just handwritten on a piece of paper. So there's no traceability. So at the minimum, what they ask, at least you need to print out with a timestamp, which they didn't do. So that again failed. So you can see all these actually warning letters. Again, this one no audit trail. This is and also prevention of deletion of record. When in a manufacturing environment, you cannot, or I would say you cannot delete your data. You have to keep it, and you have to make sure you capture different changes and different versions as well. So in this case, they deleted data. They are not supposed to, but they did. So they are being found out. Therefore, they fail as well. And also other areas like as I mentioned earlier, it does need a lot of knowledge. So actually, what you find is company will use consultant. And from overseas, maybe other country has more experience, so they come to Vietnam to help the local company. But one thing I have to be careful also the quality of the consultant. Some consultant, in my experience, is not that good. So it could be a problem for the company. They may not know because customers don't have experience, so they cannot tell if the consultant is good or bad. But we are in this line for some time. I can tell the differences, and so just be very careful when a company use consultant. And FDA also make it very clear: you cannot blame the consultant. If something goes wrong, it's your problem, right? And again, I would keep saying, just search FDA warning letter or EUGMP warning letter, you'll see a lot of this. This is another traceability not being, calibration not being done. This is from Canada, by the way. And also, accuracy of the data also questionable. So, this is my last slide. I know it's a lot of information. I do apologize. I go a bit fast. Maybe I just slow down and give you a time. Compliance is expensive. Being compliant is expensive, just remember. And you can do as much as you can to be compliant, but also as a company, we spend a lot of money. So the reality always remember is I will balance between meeting the compliance of whatever or the regulatory body I need to work with versus the cost. Like for example, if I want to export my drug to US, maybe I don't need to do the level that I did that you saw. But if I need to export, let's say the company wants to export to EU or US or Japan, they might have to think very hard. They need to do all this very completely as well. So from the organization perspective, you try to find the right spot. We will do a little bit more than that to make sure you don't get yourself in trouble. Because of the consequence of failing an audit, potentially a company will lose a lot of reputation. They cannot export, they also lose a lot of money. So they have to balance. With that, I thank you very much for your time. Yeah, that's one I wanted to do. So that would be the ideal, just for information. So you need to think very hard which need to be. When you go out in the real world, you hear this very often as well. With that, I thank everybody for your time. I hope it's useful. Again, I apologize for maybe a little bit fast. Any questions? Again, I emphasize for those who are going into the pharmaceutical trade, if you will. Remember, some of these alcohol parts is something that will want to be. With that, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for your presentation. So, có câu hỏi trong hội trường đúng không ạ? Và từ phía ban tổ chức thì sẽ có câu hỏi mình nhận được từ có 2 câu hỏi. Dạ vâng, nếu thời gian có lẽ của chương trình của An đã kết thúc, vậy thì tôi xin thay mặt ban tổ chức chính thức tuyên bố bế mạc chương trình hội thảo tương đương sinh học về bào chế phân tích. Xin trân trọng cảm ơn quý vị Agent Technology, công ty Versa CMS cùng các quý vị đại biểu, các vị khách quý đã cùng ban tổ chức tạo nên một buổi hội thảo vô cùng thành công. Xin trân trọng cảm ơn. Sau đây để kết thúc chương trình thì em xin mời các quý vị đại biểu, các vị khách quý chúng ta cùng nhau tiến lên sân khấu để cùng nhau lưu giữ lại phong cách kỷ niệm về các bạn. Xin mời toàn thể các quý vị đại biểu có mặt trong hội trường. Camera của chúng tôi đã sẵn sàng rồi thì xin mời tất cả các quý vị đại biểu hãy cùng nhanh chân đây để cùng lưu giữ lại phong cách đặc biệt này.